Yeah, I want to get into some of the hollow earth theory. And before you dismiss this as ludicrous, actually, there's a little bit more to it than it may seem to be on the surface, to put a pun there. But what I want to present is actually some more common sense types of things. And I do want to say that there's a lot more disinformation out regarding strange and weird theories than there is true information. So I'm going to try to only stick with the facts. Now, this is probably a better representation of a hollow earth than other representations out there. It seems to be that, they're representing it to be about, a couple thousand miles thick or something in the crust and getting a little bit thinner over here where the entrance to the North Pole and the South Pole is. Now, before you dismiss this theory as totally ludicrous, actually it was Sir Isaac Newton, the one who discovered gravity, who actually believed this and theorized this mathematically. And also Sir Edmund Halley, who discovered Halley's Comet, also theorized this also. This is actually kind of a popular belief in the 1800s, actually where the Jules Verne story, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, comes about. And there's actually a number of legends and things that also seem to present itself that it's a little bit more than just a ludicrous thought. So let me put it to you this way. Now, first off, just looking at this graph again, or this actual representation, if we look at, say, for instance, if we know about the Earth itself, that there's continental plates that all fit together like a jigsaw. Everybody's pretty much aware of that like the continents, where we look at the actual continental plates of the Earth, they actually fit together like a jigsaw. In other words, Africa fits in with South America, to Antarctica, including Australia, to the other side of Asia fits into North America. And actually, if you fit all those plates together, Earth size would be about 1/3 the size. So the whole theory is that Earth is actually expanding. So I'm going to get into a couple other things, and actually a few other things that are kind of more recent too. I actually want to look at some of this other thing too. This is like about the days of the planets. In other words, how long it takes for a planet to spin on its axis. Actually, Mercury is the one that takes has a very long day. It takes 58 days to spin on its axis. It's in Earth days, 58 days and 15 hours. Now, Mercury actually is supposedly, believed to be broken off originally from Venus and became its own planet. Now, Venus itself is actually not spinning fast at all. It's very, very slow. It takes 243 Earth days for it to do one day, one Venus day. And this is what I want to get to here. Venus is not flattened on the top or the bottom. In other words, the rotation of the planet is so slow that it's not flattened on the top or the bottom, on the top and the bottom. Actually, in Earth, it's not actually a perfect sphere. It's not actually a perfect sphere. It's more of an oblate spheroid. It's a little bit flatter on the North Pole and the South Pole, a little bit flatter, because as this spins, the actual oceans and even the land masses, this diameter of the Earth here is a little bit wider. It's a little bit wider. Now, there's some other things that go along with this besides the scientific basis, but just want to get into some other things here, because Jupiter, which we know is very, very large, is 9.9 Earth hours to have one day for it to spin around. It's actually spinning very quickly. Saturn also 10 hours and 39 minutes. So it could be theorized that Jupiter and Saturn are probably largely hollow planets. But how would you know that? Now, Mars is very close to what Earth is, 24 hours and 39 minutes, and it's a fairly similar size. So, that's one of the things where some of the scientists believe there could be life on Mars. Now, I'm going to get into something else here, because they're not actually saying it too much in too many of these articles, but you can dig into other articles. But this is Ross's gull, and It's one of the few birds, it's a seagull, it's one of the few birds that actually will migrate north in a winter time, not migrate south. It says, in other words, it's not really in this article. It's not going through it too much, but it does the opposite of all the other birds. And I try to actually put like sending units on these birds to actually say where the hell are they going to, and they do not. They cannot track them for some reason. They cannot track them, and what's going on is, well, I don't know. They're just losing track of them. But it's a dainty bird, and also the Inuit Indians, or otherwise known as the Eskimos, have always had this legend that there is a land that is north that is warm and green. So you're looking at this. Just the only physical evidence you probably could say of that is this: that about the bird migrating north. This one particular seagull, but there's other things that are out there that can actually pretty much get into some of this because, well, let me just get into it right here. The first off, you have a little bit of a flatness on the Earth too, but in the this is actually a radar picture of Antarctica. Now, they explain this away by saying it's the images can't be focused in on this area. This is not a light image of Antarctica. This is actually a radar image of, it's a special type of radar camera that was taken from a satellite. And it's also, from my research, satellites do not go directly over the North and South Pole. They go a little bit to the side, or even planes do not fly directly over the North Pole. That's to my knowledge. But I found this. This was not. This is not something from, a UFO theory, or this is not a Photoshop or nothing. It's an actual picture of the poles taken with this NSCAT. In 1996, they're showing like here's the North Pole. It's got this dot. Here's the South Pole. It's got this dot, and they're explaining it in a different rationale as to why it shows up this way. It's not a visible light camera. It's actually a radar type camera. But when you start thinking about this, you're thinking, well, it's not picking something up at the end of the Earth. It's like it's bouncing off of empty space, maybe, right? Because it's going in the interior. It's not. And this is not something that's made up or anything like that. You can actually look for it, the NSCAT images or whatever. But it's showing that there's a hole. So, whatever. Now, actually, some of the people have actually calculated, how big the hole possibly is, if there is a hole that goes into the center of the Earth. It calculated that it would be about between 80 and 150 miles wide, roughly. I don't know if that's accurate or not. And I know there's a load of stories on the internet that, allege about Admiral Byrd's missions to the North Pole in the 20s in 1947, and there was another mission in 1955. And there's all these weird stories about flying saucers coming out and attacking the ships, or Admiral Byrd flying his plane into a green lush jungle in the middle of Antarctica and stuff. I'm going to tell you what my opinion on that is. They're all total disinformation, garbage stories. But I also want to state this. We do know that Admiral Byrd is very well connected to, he was, when he was alive, he is old money family from the 1600s going all the way back in the United States. He was well connected and well financed by the biggest oligarchs in his country, Rockefellers and all that, on his missions. And actually, books that were written after him were also written by people that were well connected to other financial people, and they kind of put out these stories that are a little bit way over the top. But if you want to get into some of the theories out there, actually, the Hopi and Mayan Indians, which are basically related in a lot of ways, they're kind of like cousins. One's in Central America, Mexico, and the other one's up in Nevada area, northern Nevada. They basically they're both of them will state, and they're not the only ones throughout the world that state this in legend and in their teachings. They say that there are intelligent beings that are actually the source of humanity and enlightenment that are living in the center of the earth. They actually state that in their legends. So actually, I'll even state this, that there's now this would not be going all the way to the center of the earth, but there's actually caverns allegedly that have been found that go all the way to from the Hopi Indian area all the way down to the Mayan Indian area, that traverse hundreds and hundreds of miles. Actually, cavern systems in our national parks are off limits and all that type of stuff, unless it's like, a tour guide area or something. But they're really a lot of stuff is secret out there. But actually, some of this is the alleged UFO things, because they talk about there's a lot of UFO sightings on this earth that they, most vast majority of them are hoaxes and disinformation, or designed to actually throw people off track. That's in my opinion, but some of them are so damn good, it's like, whoa, man, I don't know about that deal. But, one of the theories is that the UFOs is actually coming from inside the Earth. Now, do remember that, when a planet is formed from a nebula, it does kind of look like this. There's actually a center that is formed in here, and what happens with gravity is not actually pulling to the center. What's going on, it's actually pulling to the mass. So gravity holds the mass together, but the centrifugal, in other words, it's the equilibrium between the centrifugal force that throws the matter out this way, the earth matter out this way, in this direction, and the gravitational mass force that pulls it back together are in equilibrium, and it keeps everything like this. Our Earth actually, if you look at pure science and with the geological plates, it's been very, very slowly expanding over many millions of years. And the ocean floors are like millions of years old, but the land masses are billions of years old. They estimated that with science. Which tells you that the ocean floors where it's expanded is much younger. So, you know what I'm saying there? It's like, in other words, the original Earth was smaller, and if you put all the plates together, it was about 1/3 the size. So why would there not be an opening inside of it? Does that not make sense? Now, I'm going to actually add something to this, because there's other things involved here. When you're looking at this looks a little bit too much. It looks like it's Photoshop, but it's not. That's actually a radar. They explained it away. They said it was because the camera couldn't pick up at that angle and all this kind of stuff. And there's some other images. You might be looking at the hole in the bottom of the earth, man. I don't know. But there's other evidence that comes up, because what they're saying is that the inside of the, according to the theory, we'll put it this way, the hollow earth theory, they're saying the inside of the earth, now you're talking maybe, 1,000 miles or something, or 2,000 miles, or 1,500 miles, or whatever, of thickness of actual matter, or maybe more. I don't know, more or less. I wouldn't know, because, it's like, who never measured this? But you're talking about, a mass of land, so you wouldn't really understand. You would not think it's like, when you're drilling an oil well, even if you went 8 miles down into the ground, it's like nothing, because it's hundreds and hundreds, or maybe a couple thousand miles thick, okay? But they say that the actual topography of the land is a mirror image of what is on the surface of the earth. So they're saying, actually, like, the land that we see on the surface is the oceans that is on the inner earth. And I'm going to point out just something interesting. Now, this was not from some hollow earth theorist that brought this up, but it was actually a discovery that was made in 2011. They said that there is, from their instruments, when they're probing into the earth and trying to discover, what actually is made up of the earth, they said there's an ocean at least the size of the Arctic Ocean under China. So, some scientists were doing that. That's from 2011. Now, going back just a few years, in 2007, they were determining that there was oceans inside the Earth as large as, or maybe even larger than the oceans that are on the surface of the Earth. But they call it like the transition zone. They're not hollow Earth theorists or anything like that. They're just stating that there's oceans inside the Earth that may be, half rock or half water, but they could be pools of water. And there's other ones that came up, from the 2000 to the 2011 theory. They talked that there was ocean the size of Arctic Ocean in below China, at least the size of Arctic Ocean below China. So I'm going to tell you also that from my understanding, and actually if you look at some of the charts where the orbits of the satellites go over this North Pole and stuff, they don't go over North Pole, and allegedly when they go over North Pole they fall out of orbit. That's what it's supposed to happen. Now, this kind of whole brings up a whole other theory about possible other civilizations living in the Earth, and maybe it's not so ludicrous, but you got to dismiss the absolute ludicrous, because I'll guarantee you this fact: if this is true, it's well known by the powers that be, if it's true, and they don't want people to know about it because, well, first off, that pretty much could throw a lot of structured religion out the window, and people might be questioning a lot of different things, and why people have this authority over people or whatever, and it kind of knocks the structure out from underneath the powers that be. But you got to examine it from this angle, that not to go down too many rabbit holes, so to speak, as a pun, maybe. Not talking about the hole in the earth, but you know what I mean. I'm talking about when you're saying like the more ludicrous theories out there, because they rarely get into some of the more wild rumors. And it looks like a lot of the rumors that about Admiral Byrd and about him encountering aliens and stuff on his mission, and when he flew to the North Pole, that's one of the ludicrous theories out there. There's been books written about him afterwards, about attacks on the ships during, Operation High Jump, or maybe the other one later on that was in Deep Freeze, that was in 55, from spacecraft. I think that's all garbage. But I just want to point out there has been a number of sightings by very good, people that are not, you've seen people in the military say they saw UFOs that they're reliable witnesses, and there's been some pretty good pictures that some people have taken, even with their cell phone cameras, and you're wondering, what the hell's going on here, right? So, it may not be coming from the outer space, it might be coming from the inner space. So, just want to present this theory briefly, and there's a lot of legends. Like I said, the Inuit Eskimo Indians, Inuit Indians or Eskimos is commonly more known, but not politically correct maybe to say that. But I'll just say that so people understand what I'm talking about. The Inuit Indians or Eskimos in Alaska, they've always said that there's a land in the north that is like lush green jungle forest. They believe that. That's one of their legends. And you can also, interject what the Hopi Indians and, the Mayan Indians said, too, about the hollow earth and the intelligent life that lives there that actually is the source of life on this earth, too. And, it's been a popular theory, actually, in the 1800s. It's gone out of vogue recently, but part of that is because it's been led down paths that are way ludicrous, that are beyond, they're just ridiculous. But do understand that, if the Earth was not expanding, it would be 1/3 the size. So either it is very, very much less dense, or maybe gaseous inside or something, or maybe it's actually hollow. And you're talking a period of tens and tens of millions of years, or maybe billions of years. And who the hell knows what could have happened to life in that period of time. What we know is very, very, microscopic. So the theory is not so ludicrous, and I just want to point out some of the more blatant facts. a number of legends and things that also seem to present itself, that it's a little bit more than just a ludicrous thought. So let me put it to you this way. Now, first off, just looking at this graph again, or this actual representation, if we look at, say, for instance, if we know about the Earth itself, that there's continental plates that all fit together like a jigsaw. Everybody's pretty much aware of that like the continent. Yeah, I want to get into some of the hollow Earth theory. And before you dismiss this as ludicrous, actually there's a little bit more to it than it may seem to be on the surface, to put a pun there. But what I want to present is actually some more common sense types of things. And I do want to say that there's a lot more disinformation out regarding strange and weird theories than there is true information. So I'm going to try to only stick with the facts. Now, this is probably a better representation of a hollow Earth than other representations out there. It seems to be that, they're representing it to be about, a couple thousand miles thick or something in the crust, and getting a little bit thinner over here where the entrance to the North Pole and the South Pole is. Now, before you dismiss this theory as totally ludicrous, actually it was Sir Isaac Newton, the one who discovered gravity, who actually believed this and theorized this mathematically. And also Sir Edmund Halley, who discovered Halley's Comet, also theorized this also. This is actually kind of a popular belief in the 1800s, actually where the Jules Verne story, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, comes about. And there's actually an instance where we look at the actual continental plates of the Earth. They actually fit together like a jigsaw. In other words, Africa fits in with South America to Antarctica, including Australia, to the other side of Asia fits into North America. And actually, if you fit all those plates together, Earth's size would be about 1/3 the size. So the whole theory is that Earth is actually expanding.